But to just say, let's cut down without any such basis, I will have problem with that, Mr. Chairman.
The Chairman, how many more opportunities do I have? Oh, Chairman. Chairman, the opposition around this table is just too much. No, we are finding solutions to the problems of this country. Chairman, my last question would have been his exact role at the ministry, but I will not ask that question, Mr. Chairman. My last question is a current issue, which is the domestic debt exchange, and how the Minister of Finance has handled the process to the exclusion of Parliament, and a call that he must come to Parliament for parliamentary approval of the renegotiated arrangements that he has with creditors and etc. So, what is your take on that one?
Mr. Chairman, Parliament is an important institution in the governance of our country. And as we know, including myself, we are the people's representatives. And so consulting Parliament on major policies like that is appropriate. But my understanding is that when the minister submitted the budget for 2023, and I went through the budget, the issue of debt operation was in the budget, and Parliament approved the budget. And so,
was it the policy or the details of the debt exchange program that was in the budget? Was it just the mention of a policy that we will do this? Or was it the details?
But Parliament is to be consulted on the policy. As for the details, the operational details, I think that the ministry should be allowed to do that. If the ministry has to come to Parliament every day on the operational
Financial Management Act.
Yes.
Yeah. Tim, answer your question, please.
So I'm saying that if every minister has to come to Parliament to consult on the operational details of every policy, I'm wondering whether government can run. You know, and so, Mr. Chairman, my understanding is that Parliament approved the debt operation, and that is what the minister is implementing. Thank you, Chair.
Very well. I'll move on. Yes, Honorable Zera.
Oh, that's my brother. Yeah, that's my brother. I need to say something nice to him. Congratulations, my brother. And I greet all my relatives. Nitumapam. Nah. Honorable Nominee, I have only one question for you. And of course, you and I have known ourselves for long, so I know what your capabilities are. And I would just want you to share with this committee, having been at the Energy Ministry as a Deputy Minister for, I think, close to 6 years, you would have garnered a lot of experience and a lot of insight into nation building, basically. How do you think this experience is going to help you in your new position? And what would you say is your legacy at the Energy Ministry? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll start with the legacy. As you know, I was Deputy Minister. I was supposed to assist my ministers. And I successfully served under 3 ministers of energy. The Honorable Bachi Ajako, the Honorable John Peter Ameo, and the Honorable Matthew Opoku Prempe. I think that it is an important legacy because 3 ministers have come to meet me there. And the fact that I've been been able to work with them successfully to deliver on their mandate given them by the president. I think it's a very important development in my life. I've gained so much experience, diversity of experience from the three ministers I've served under. And I am going to the Ministry of Finance when I'm approved by this committee in Parliament to continue to apply that experience in my working relationship with the Minister for Finance. Thank you.
Yes. Gisela.
I'll leave you to him. Honorable Nominee, good evening, and good evening to your family and friends. As a former MC of Tamale Metropolitan Assembly, what financial reforms would you recommend to municipal, metropolitan, and district assemblies as you head to the Ministry of Finance? In other words, what advice can you give as you head to this new ministry as a Minister of State? What advice can you give to the Minister of Finance? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I would like to recall how my relationship with the Minister for Finance started. It actually started when I was the mayor of Tamale. And as you know, even though we are a decentralized country, resources sent to assemblies are often not enough to be able to meet the development needs of the assemblies. And so I met him and discussed the possibility of issuing the first municipal bond in Ghana in order to raise private capital to support the development of the assembly. And the minister then offered advice, technical advice, but also agreed to host a meeting of stakeholders to discuss developments in Tamale, where I was the mayor. That was how my relationship with him started. And so in future, we may be looking at that possibility in order to insulate our over-reliance on government finances for the development of metropolitan and district assemblies. But
More bonds.
But if you have municipal bonds, you can do that relying on the back of revenue generated by the assemblies. The assemblies do a lot of income, IGF, income generation. The assemblies get revenue from different sources, apart from what the government allocates to them. And so you can do a municipal bond against those revenue. Also, you can do a municipal bond for a project that will generate revenue to pay for the bond. And so these are all opportunities that we could explore. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you mentioned the bonds, everybody on the table got excited because I think there's fatigue and people are becoming a bit risk averse after the ecosystem of bonds that have been issued by the Ministry of Finance, I think have got a bit of a shake-up. So, so my next question is contractors' payments. Contractors' payments. I think over the years, there are a lot of uncompleted projects that are dotted along the whole landscape of the country. And successive governments come and go and still talk about new projects that they need to award for reasons best known to awarding authorities. But yet, the country is losing so much with a lot of projects that are uncompleted, and also payments that are not made on time. And so basic project management principles of projects being able to be carried out with the right quality, with the right, on time and all that, are almost thrown to the wind. What can the Ministry of Finance do this time better to be able to ensure that the wastage in the system is minimized? Because I think it comes to a point where it keeps on rolling over and we're not seeing much headway. What would you suggest to your minister?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When projects are delayed, they lead to unnecessary cost overruns. And the fact that the projects are not completed also deprived communities from the benefits of these projects. So it's important that we do projects when we have the resources to complete those projects. What I know the ministry has been doing for some time now is the introduction of the commencement certificate. You know, that you will not be able to start a project unless you have a commencement certificate. Even to award a project, you need a commencement certificate. So that has limited somehow off-budgetary spending on projects. In the past, when ministries are allocated funds, then they start implementing their procurement plans without recourse to whether the money is available or not. But with the introduction of the commencement certificate, that has limited such spending. And I believe we should even deepen that. Also, the gift mix system should be deepened. It is working well, but we can even do better in order to ensure that we control the number of projects that agencies do without having the money to pay for those projects. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So you do agree that there's wastage in the system, and don't you agree? Nominee, Honorable Nominee, I think sometimes what you suggest is sometimes more of a bit of a theory than a practice, because from what we know in the built environment ecosystem, things have still not changed for the better as you suggest. So I would believe that if you do get the nod, when you go there, try and make a change. Now, my last question is, what would you do if your advice isn't taken?
Mr. Chairman, the sector minister takes responsibility for every policy implemented by the ministry and eventually to the president as the president of the country. So I can advise, but I'm not sure my advice will not be taken. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Eric, before you, yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The Honorable Nominee raised the issue of municipal bonds. And I've heard colleagues talk about cocoa bonds and several other bonds. My question has to do with a point you made, that if you issue municipal bonds and you invest the proceeds in capital projects, you wouldn't have challenges, paying back the loans plus the interest that will accrue. Are you implying that our current economic challenge, specifically with regards to our inability to service our debts, stems from the fact that we did not invest the proceeds of the loan into capital projects?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chairman, if you look at our debt profile and why the debt levels are where they are, the Honourable Minister for Finance has clearly communicated the reasons over and over. We have read also from the budgets that have been presented to us in Parliament the reasons why the debt levels have gotten to that level. COVID spending was one of the reasons. the crystallization of the energy sector debts, it was another. Then also the cleaning of the financial sector cleaning. Those have taken us to that levels. But also the exchange rate effect, the depreciation of the cedi. And so we understand very well where the debts are coming from. But that is not to say that they haven't been spent in productive areas. For example, the COVID spending, we all understand, was about life and death. And any government that will invest to save the lives of the people of the country, I don't think that can be considered unproductive. The energy sector is a very critical sector in our economy. The least we can do for industry is to make sure that the lights are on, because that is where they can be able to produce. That is where, when they continue to produce, they are able to create jobs for our people. And so spending on the energy sector areas is a very productive spending. And then the financial sector are cleaning. And so the roads that we have built, investing in education, investing in health infrastructure, have all come from our taxes and also from the loans that we have taken. And so I will not say that we didn't invest this money, but we have been overtaken by events leading to spending that were not necessarily in projects like energy or roads or education, but to save lives of the people of Ghana. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, my second question is still on the debts. We normally attribute our current economic challenge to COVID-19 and the Russia-Ukraine war. But you know, when the impact of COVID came down, G20 made available a facility, a program, the Debt Service Sustainability Initiative, under which countries that subscribe had debt service suspension that offered them some kind of relief to enable them restore fiscal consolidation. At that time, our finance minister was the chairman of the DC, and in one of his presentations, he pleaded for extension of the debt service sustainability, the period of the initiative. Unfortunately, Ghana did not subscribe to that. Can you explain to us why, in spite of our debt level and the fact that we are unable to service the debt, leading to the restriction or the closure of our access to the bond market and several other consequences, Ghana refused to take advantage of this special initiative, which was developed to offer relief to poor countries like us?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, whilst I appreciate the point made by the honorable member, I don't have brief on this subject matter. And so, Mr. Chairman, I'm unable to provide an answer to this. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Chairman, can the nominee assure this committee that you will go and look into it and later furnish the committee with... No, I'm not giving him any condition. Anyway, let me ask. Napo and his people will pass on me. Now, my last question. Auditor General. Mr. Chairman, as the upgraded Deputy Minister of State has just stated, I'm interested in the issue about how we have handled the resources meant for the fight against COVID-19. Honestly, the pandemic devastated nations
and thrown a lot of nations off track. Unfortunately, when you look at the Auditor General's report that was submitted to us, clearly we have not handled the resources very well. Now we are at the IMF trying to be enrolled onto a program from which we estimate to have about $3 billion to resuscitate the Ghanaian economy. Now, if we give you the nod, you move into that ministry, you move to the Ministry of Finance. What assurance can you give to the good people of Ghana that if given the opportunity, you go into that ministry, and if by God's grace we succeed in our negotiations with IMF and the facility is granted to us, you collaborate with your minister to ensure judicious use of the resources that will be made available to us, so that we won't have a report damning as what was captured in the Auditor General's report to us.
Honorable, before you come to that, Auditor General's report, is it final? We here, we know that eventually when it comes before the Public Accounts Committee, what happens? Some of the so-called findings are withdrawn, some are seen to be unjustifiable. So we should be very worried how we use it and give the impression to the public that what they have said is final. But as if you may answer, he's talking about judicious use of public funds. Please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I will, to the best of my ability. Thank you, Chair.
I didn't. He has answered the question. No. You said the judicious use of public funds.
Because he has disallowed the question completely. And so, Mr. Speaker, you should give me the opportunity to ask the other question. Very, very important. Once the foundation of the question has been, destroyed, the question can no longer hold, and the new question must be, posed to the nominee. Honorable nominee, when you are exercising leadership, the most important thing is about getting people to trust you, to confide in you as somebody who is capable of leading the group to your destination. You are going to the Ministry of Finance. The Minister of Finance himself has come under serious attack to the extent that members, a sizable number of members of Parliament from the majority side have indicated that the man should be sacked. And several other members, in fact, the entire minority caucus has also supported this cause. This is a clear indication that majority of Ghanaians have lost confidence in our finance ministers. I said majority of Ghanaians because we are representing them. And so if majority of parliamentarians have lost confidence in the minister, by extension, it means that majority of Ghanaians have lost confidence in our finance minister. Honourable members, you are all with us. You are all part of it. Why are you doing this? And so now you are going to the ministry to work with this minister whose confidence is at the lowest ebb as we speak. What do you think can be done to restore confidence in leadership so that the good people of Ghana will have some kind of hope that there's now we can see the light at the end of the tunnel? Because it looks as if Ghanaians are desperate. They have lost hope in the finance minister and the entire team. What do you think must be done to restore that hope? so that as you join the team.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I think we all know that life is not a fixed one. Life is ups and downs. And in the life of every country, there will be downturns. There will also be times of good things happening to the country. And we face these things independence. And so it is true that we have faced some challenges in the management of our country. I mentioned COVID, and just when COVID was subsiding in terms of its fiscal impact, the Russia-Ukraine war also came. Inflation around the world increased because food prices went very high. Petroleum prices went very high. And we can see several countries, the central banks of several countries, using monetary tightening to contain inflation. But this Minister for Finance, the Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta, has not abandoned ship. He's still here to take us through these troubles, through these difficulties, and I can see light at the end of the tunnel. Inflation just reduced after 19 months or so. Last month, inflation has come down, although marginally. There is hope in sight. The economy has recovered from when we grew at 0.5% in 2020, when COVID afflicted us so much. Now we are growing at positive growth rates. And so the economy is going to recover and recover. And I think that bold leadership is not to run away from our troubles, but to stay, work with people, and with the grace of God, get around those troubles and bring hope back. And that is what I see the minister and the entire government is doing at the moment. Thank you.
Very well. Yes, Honorable Minister for...
Minister Kopoku says I have no question. But my question is simple. I think one of the longest serving deputy ministers of energy. Today you do realize that some of your ministers are here supporting you. It's remarkable that I have to put it on record as probably good service has paid off with the promotion. And as you go to the Ministry of Finance, I know you're going to work hard. 2 big government programs I was entrusted to Dr. AminAdam, the energy transition and our gold for oil. And on both, yes, he's doing that. I'm giving them the cover. And on both occasions, he's distinguished himself. So I hope this committee... So this committee would see our colleague, when you look at the Constitution, the qualification to be a minister really is as a member of Parliament, your qualification. And I hope this committee will give our colleague a resounding endorsement and encourage him that as he goes to the Ministry of Finance, he produce governance, me and you. So, you see, virtue is never to ask questions. Let's get it right. It's never. It's to compliment as well. So I'm complimenting him for the work that he has done. Let me compliment. I have 3 shots as compliment. This is number 1.
Address me.
Chairman, thank you. Go away. So your work, the president has seen and has promoted you. So continue to do the hard work, and God will continue to raise and make you better. But that's my first compliment. My second compliment.
Honorable, if you're going to ask another question, I'll allow you.
Okay, I have 2 other questions.
Compliment is enough. Please ask a question. Yes, Honorable Agad.
Mr. Chairman, let me thank my boss for the compliments. I truly appreciate that. It takes a good leader to also recognize the contributions of his subordinates. And I'm greatly indebted to you for the opportunity of working well with you. I thank you.
Honorable Dr. AminAdam, let me place on record that Honorable Anta has been an elder brother to me, and so I'll ask him just 2 questions. I would have exhausted my 3 questions, but because he's my elder brother, ask 2. Doc, on the 14th of February, Reuters reported that the IMF had appointed a Swiss funding financial supervision advisor to provide technical support to the Bank of Ghana. And this is how they couched the language as, and I quote, the West African nation strives to obtain executive board approval for a $3 billion bailout. How did you receive this news?
Mr. Chairman, I think it's important to know that even in times when Ghana did not receive an IMF support, Ghana continued to cooperate in terms of technical cooperation with the IMF, receiving technical assistance from the IMF. That has continued to be a feature of our relationship. And so whether somebody is appointed to sit in the Bank of Ghana or the person is sitting in Washington, the technical support provided to Ghana is something that has been going on. Now, my understanding is that anytime a country has an IMF program, they appoint somebody to go and work closely with the central bank to ensure that we do not drill from whatever progress that we'll be making under the program. So for me, it wasn't any surprise at all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Now, I don't know whether you are versed with the constitutional provisions that sets up the Bank of Ghana, Article 183. And if you look at 183, the whole of it, it spells out the functions of the bank. Basically, the bank is a regulator. My worry is that this phenomenon of having advisors, foreign advisors, designated to advise regulators. And if you look at the 183 in a way positions the Bank of Ghana as an independent entity. Not even the Finance Ministry has the power to direct the Bank of Ghana in the performance of its functions. All right, so where you have a technical advisor, Honorable Dr. Anta, what do you think would be the relationship between the two in a situation whereby the technical advisor professes some opinion or advice and the Bank of Ghana thinks otherwise? How do we resolve that conflict? And don't you think that such a conflict has the potential to undermine the independence of the bank as envisaged by the framers of the Constitution?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, Ghana is a member of the IMF, and the central bank is mostly our representative at the bank. Indeed, the IMF is the global central bank of all central banks of countries. And so that relationship already exists. And the advice they give to our central bank, I'm not sure has in any way ever conflicted with the regulatory duty, the regulatory work of the central bank. as far as I know, the central bank has a board, and the board is supposed to be taking decisions and making policies and approving policies of the bank. And so to the extent that an advice proffered by somebody appointed by the central bank is inconsistent, or to the extent that it would derail whatever progress the central bank is making in its monetary policy, I doubt if the central bank will give in to that, Mr. Chairman, because they have done well over the years working with the IMF, but I'm not sure in any way that relationship has somehow conflicted with the regulatory duties of the central bank. I'm not sure about that.
Mr. Chair, with your leave, honorable colleague, I have chairman's leave for clarification. Okay, I just want a clarification on that, something so that.
When you finish it, I'll give it to you.
Yeah. Honorable Nominee, just a point of clarification. In your answer to our colleague on the appointment of an advisor to the central bank, you explained that it is not new, and that it's been going on. So you would disagree with anybody who would attempt to say that the IMF appointing an advisor to the central bank is as a result of some mismanagement or some inefficiencies on the part of the managers of our central bank. You would disagree with anybody who would attempt to say that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
What would be your basis?
Mr. Chairman, I'm quite familiar with the work of the IMF. And if you go to the IMF, they have advisors on every country. They have technical lead for Ghana, they have technical lead for Nigeria. They have that. And apart from that, they have offices here that are headed by their resident country directors, if you like. And so what I was trying to say is that whether somebody appointed to sit in the bank or sit in Washington, that relationship already exists. And particularly when the IMF is going to commit up to $3 billion to Ghana to improve on our balance of payments, I don't see anything wrong with the IMF sending an officer, because IMF program is going to have a menu of conditions that have to be met. And so if there is an advisor working with them to ensure that these conditions are met, the policies we agreed to implement with them are implemented, I don't see that conflicting with the independence and the regulatory work of the central bank. So, Mr. Chairman, this is my view on that. Thank you.
Are you done? Yes. Now, Doc, my last question, and it has to do with the gold for oil deal. I'm sure as Deputy Minister for Energy, you are privy to the terms of that transaction. Now, my question to you is, has government appointed a broker for the transaction? It's privy to the terms.
Yes, Honorable.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the central bank, by their law, can buy and sell gold. And so in carrying out this function, the central bank is also independent of the government. So what is happening under the gold for oil money is for the central bank to continue its role of supporting the international transactions of the country through their reserves. And they can keep reserves in dollars, they can keep reserves in gold, they can even buy more gold than what they need as reserves in order to support the international transactions of the country. And this is exactly what the central bank is doing in this case. As to who they sell the gold to, I'm sure that is what we are referring to as broker. They sell gold to so many people already. And as I speak to you, under the Gold for Oil program, there is one of the companies that has agreed to supply oil to Bost, which is taking gold directly, not through a broker. And so, as far as that is concerned, I don't think there is something like a broker appointed by government. They sell gold to different people. And the broker in this sense is maybe somebody who buys the gold and also resell to other people. That is what I'm sure you may be referring to as broker. And there are so many companies. In fact, last week, I was in a meeting with the gold team of the Bank of Ghana and another company that was seeking to buy gold from the Bank of Ghana. There are even Ghanaian companies that buy the gold for the Bank of Ghana, but that at the same time want to even buy gold from the Bank of Ghana for other, because their clients out there are no longer getting gold through the local buyers. And so this is what has been happening under the Gold for Oil program, unless you have a specific issue you want us to discuss.
All right. Honorable Brian, did you still want to ask a question? You have changed it. All right. Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, let me also acknowledge the presence of our revered chiefs and leaders from the northern region, especially the Karga area, and the family of my big brother, Mohammed Aminanta. Let me begin from where my colleague, Honorable James Agalga, left off. The gold for oil. And your previous minister, under whom you worked, has just revealed that you at the ministry was in charge of this transaction. Now, listening to you just a while ago, you indicated that what the Bank of Ghana is doing is part of, quote, supporting government international transaction of the country. It's part of their role to support government international transactions of the country. Now, if you look at Article 181, especially 5 of the Constitution, shouldn't such international transactions be subject for Parliament's consideration?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, let me correct an impression if it was unfortunately created to mean that I talked about government international transactions. I said Ghana's international transactions. And so when BDCs, bulk distribution companies, go to the Bank of Ghana in search for Forex to pay for the import of petroleum product, that is an international transaction of the country. So the Bank of Ghana performs that duty by supporting through their Forex reserves or gold reserves international transactions of the country. I didn't mean of the government.
Well, you said government international transactions. If that was a slip, I will take it, and perhaps we'll look at that later on. But I have looked at the Customs Duties Act, Act 502. It does not exempt gold from duty when importing or exporting.
Has been buying gold and selling gold. And so if we want to know the duty they have paid, it may be important to also contact the Bank of Ghana, since they have been doing this for some time now. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, we have a number of legislations in this field. You have the Minerals and Mining Act, Act 703, that should license, people who want to buy or sell gold or even own gold. You have the Bank of Ghana Act that also prohibits the import and export of gold without Bank of Ghana's authorization. And I just referred to the Customs Duties Act also. And earlier we had a conversation also around the Constitution itself, Article 181(5). Given this lack of transparency or seeming lack of transparency and obvious confusion in the minds of many when you listen to the discussions across the country, especially in relation to whether there is a fair exchange, that recognizes the value for what each party is presenting, whether they are brokers or they are intermediaries, whether these brokers or intermediaries are foreigners or local. Shouldn't that make it a case for Parliament that is the representative, that has a representative of the people to properly scrutinize and be fairly briefed on what really this is all about, so that we are not surprised in the future about some ghosts hiding in some corners as a result of this transaction?
Mr. Chairman, I know that Parliament scrutinizes the work of the Central Bank, of the Bank of Ghana. And so to the extent that Parliament wants to take up any issue the Central Bank is involved in, I think it's right. It's in the right direction.
Now, finally, let me take you home. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this one is very important. Mr. Chairman, I've spent all my questions on the gold. If you just allow me this one, it is a local question, Mr. Chairman, please. That's why I pleaded with you before. That's why I pleaded with you before I went for the third one.